He never imagined that asking for help could become a turning point in his life. A young black man, struggling just to survive, found himself at the mercy of a billionaire whose decision could mean hope or heartbreak. But what happened next wasn't just about one man's struggle. It revealed something far deeper about power, privilege, and the invisible walls built by racism. His story will challenge what you believe about justice, compassion, and humanity itself. The only question is, are you ready to hear it? Before the world judged him by his struggle, he was simply a young man chasing ordinary dreams. His name was Marcus. Born in a working-class neighborhood, he grew up with more questions than answers. Questions about why opportunities never seemed to come his way, why doors that opened so easily for others always felt bolted shut for him. Still, Marcus carried hope like a flame he refused to let die. Every morning, he woke up before dawn, juggling 2 part-time jobs that barely covered rent. His sneakers were worn thin, his phone screen cracked, yet he carried himself with quiet dignity. To anyone who looked closely, he was proof of resilience. A son, a friend, a believer in a future he could almost touch. But life wasn't kind. While others advanced with safety nets and connections, Marcus faced setbacks that had nothing to do with effort and everything to do with the color of his skin. Employers overlooked him, landlords questioned him, and even walking into a store sometimes earned him suspicious stares. These daily cuts didn't break him outright, but they left scars invisible to most. And still, Marcus believed one chance could change everything. One opportunity. One person willing to see him, not the stereotypes forced upon him. That's why, when his world collapsed under the weight of bills, debts, and despair, he did something many would call unthinkable. He turned to a man whose wealth placed him in a world Marcus could never imagine. A billionaire who had the power to help or to walk away. What Marcus didn't know then was that this choice would set into motion a story far larger than himself. A story that would expose truths many prefer to ignore. Marcus's decision to reach out to a billionaire wasn't born from greed. It came from desperation. His rent was overdue. His younger sister needed medication the insurance wouldn't cover. And his mother, once the backbone of the family, was working herself sick just to keep food on the table. He had tried every avenue, long hours, odd jobs, even swallowing his pride to ask for small favors. Each attempt ended the same way. Doors closed, faces turned, and promises broken. One night, staring at a stack of final notices, Marcus scrolled through his cracked phone, landing on a story about a billionaire known for his philanthropy. This man had been celebrated for building schools abroad, for funding charities, for his carefully photographed acts of kindness splashed across magazine covers. To Marcus, it felt like a lifeline. If the world refused to see him, maybe this one man would. But the path to asking for help wasn't simple. When Marcus walked into the lobby of the billionaire's company, the marble floors gleamed beneath his worn shoes, and every glance reminded him that he didn't belong. Security guards eyed him as though he had wandered into forbidden territory. Receptionists spoke with clipped politeness, their smiles dissolving the moment he turned his back. It wasn't just rejection. It was dismissal, as if his very presence was a problem that needed solving. Still, Marcus waited. Hours passed, and whispers followed him like shadows. Who is he? What does he want? He doesn't look like he belongs here. Each word cut deeper, reminding him that poverty and race combined to make him invisible in some spaces and a threat in others. Finally, he managed to hand over a letter, a plea written in careful handwriting, to the billionaire's assistant. It wasn't demand. It wasn't even begging. It was a story of his life, a request for a chance, a hope that someone with power might notice the humanity behind the struggle. Days stretched into weeks, and silence answered him. Marcus returned again and again, each time facing the same cold stares, the same locked doors. The building itself became a fortress, towering glass and steel that seemed designed not just to protect wealth, but to keep people like him out. And then came the moment that turned his struggle into something far darker. One evening, after yet another fruitless attempt to reach the billionaire, Marcus was stopped outside the gates by police. Someone had called to report a suspicious black man loitering near the property. The accusation wasn't unusual. He had faced versions of it before. But here, at the edge of hope, it felt like betrayal carved into stone. The officers questioned him harshly, ignoring his explanations. His letter, creased and worn from being carried in his pocket, was treated like contraband. Neighbors walked past, whispering. To them, he wasn't a man asking for help. He was a problem to be handled. Marcus's heart pounded as he realized how easily this could spiral. Every headline he had ever read about men who looked like him, men who never made a home, replayed in his mind. His words caught in his throat, because here, reason didn't always matter. Skin color did. He was eventually released, but not before humiliation settled in like a weight he couldn't shake. The billionaire remained unreachable, tucked away behind walls of privilege, unaware, or perhaps unwilling to see, the man outside his gates. But Marcus didn't give up. Each setback only sharpened the contrast between his world and the billionaire's. On one side, desperation, discrimination, and survival. On the other, comfort, safety, and choices. And as Marcus kept returning, the tension grew. The billionaire staff whispered. The police were alerted more than once. And soon Marcus was branded as a nuisance rather than a human being in need. What none of them realized, however, was that Marcus's persistence wasn't just about money. It was about being seen, about breaking through walls built by centuries of injustice. Every time he stood outside that building, he carried not just his own struggles, but the weight of every black man told he didn't belong, every family dismissed, every opportunity denied. And then something shifted. News of his repeated visits began to spread. A journalist caught wind of the story, snapping a photo of Marcus standing at the gate, letter in hand. The image went viral, sparking debates online. Was he brave or reckless? Was the billionaire compassionate or complicit in ignoring him? The world was beginning to watch, and the billionaire could no longer remain silent. But what he would say would not be what Marcus expected. Finally, after weeks of waiting, Marcus received an unexpected call. The billionaire's office wanted to see him, an invitation he had almost stopped believing would come. As he walked into the gleaming tower, the polished floors reflected his worn shoes, a stark reminder of the worlds that had separated them for so long. Every step felt heavier than the last. Hope tangled with anxiety, and doubt gnawed at him. Was this a genuine chance, or a trap disguised as charity? When he entered the office, the billionaire sat behind an immense desk, exuding calm power. Marcus handed over his letter again, though it was now frayed and smudged, a symbol of persistence through relentless rejection. For a moment, silence filled the room, a silence so thick it felt like it could suffocate him. Then the billionaire spoke. His words were measured, almost clinical. "I've read your story. You've been very persistent." Marcus held his breath, anticipating kindness, assistance, salvation. Instead, the man leaned back, eyes cold. "But persistence isn't enough. Life is not fair. You must learn to accept your position, your limits. Some doors will never open for you, no matter how hard you try." Marcus felt the room tilt. His chest tightened, each word a blow he hadn't expected. He realized then that this wasn't just indifference. It was a blunt acknowledgement of the systemic barriers that had shadowed him his whole life. The billionaire wasn't cruel, not entirely. He was indifferent, insulated by privilege, unable or unwilling to see the human cost of his decisions. Anger surged, but so did something darker, hopelessness. Years of struggle, the sacrifices, the humiliation, all compressed into this moment. And yet, beneath the sting, there was a spark, a refusal to vanish quietly into the shadows. He had faced rejection before, been overlooked, dismissed, even criminalized for simply existing. But this was different. This was a living embodiment of every obstacle he had fought to overcome. Marcus's mind raced. Every injustice he had endured, the stares, the suspicion, the walls erected by those who refused to see him, culminated here. And suddenly, the billionaire offered one final statement, almost as an afterthought. "You can leave now, or you can stay, but nothing will change for you if you rely on me." It was a challenge disguised as dismissal, a mirror of the world Marcus had fought to navigate. He left the office, chest tight, footsteps echoing like drumbeats of a fight far bigger than him. Outside, the city didn't feel different, but Marcus knew he had crossed a threshold. The moment wasn't about charity. It was about clarity. For the first time, he saw that the struggle wasn't just to survive or to be noticed by someone else. The fight was about asserting his own humanity, demanding it from a world that tried to deny it. And as he walked away, rain began to fall over the streets. He whispered to himself a question that would haunt and drive him. If the world refuses to see you, will you still rise? Marcus walked away from the billionaire's office that day, drenched by the rain and weighed down by the sting of indifference. But as he stepped onto the crowded streets, he began to understand something that no letter, no plea, and no viral photo could have ever taught him. The fight for recognition and dignity doesn't come from the mercy of the powerful. It comes from claiming your own worth in a world determined to overlook it. In the weeks that followed, Marcus didn't wait for someone else to open doors for him. He started small, reaching out to his community, sharing his story, organizing resources for others who struggled silently like he did. What had once felt like rejection became a catalyst for resilience. Every step he took was a refusal to disappear, a quiet rebellion against the forces that tried to define him by race, class, and circumstance. The incident with the billionaire, while shocking, became more than a personal setback. It became a mirror reflecting systemic truths. Marcus realized that his experience was not unique. Countless black men and women face invisible walls every day. Doors closed without explanation, opportunities withheld without cause, and assumptions made based solely on skin color. It wasn't just about money or influence. It was about humanity, recognition, and the right to exist without constant scrutiny. Social media amplified his story. People began sharing it, discussing it, questioning the privileges and blind spots of those in power. Marcus's experience became a conversation starter, a lens through which others could examine the subtle and overt ways racism operates, not only in headline moments, but in everyday interactions. By the time months had passed, Marcus had built a network of support, a circle of people committed to helping each other navigate barriers that society often ignored. He wasn't rich, he wasn't celebrated by corporate magazines, and he hadn't received the aid he initially sought, but he had something far more powerful: agency, visibility, and a platform to challenge injustice. The story didn't end neatly. Racism didn't disappear overnight. Systems remained flawed, biases persisted, and the billionaire continued his life largely untouched by the realities he had brushed against. But Marcus emerged with clarity and purpose. He understood that waiting for the world to acknowledge you can be a trap. True change often begins with insisting on your own humanity, refusing to vanish quietly, and holding others accountable through action and awareness. And as he looked back on that rainy day outside the towering glass building, Marcus asked himself, and now asks all of us, a question that lingers long after the story ends. If we wait for someone else to see our worth, how many of us will be ignored? How many more must face indifference before we demand change? This was more than his story. It was a story of countless lives navigating a system that judges on skin rather than merit, a world that tests patience, courage, and resilience at every turn. And in that reflection, there's hope. Hope that speaking, acting, and refusing to be invisible can ripple outward, challenging prejudice, inspiring empathy, and igniting change one story at a time.